Hey.
All right. Well, YouTube is saying we're live, so I'm going to have to assume we are live. So welcome back, everybody, to the latest 9 out of 10 testers meetup. Today, we are talking, ranting, raving about leadership. The reason we chose this topic, all of us have been in a position of leadership. We've seen it done well. Unfortunately, we've also seen it done badly. And what we want to talk about today is what makes us tick as leaders, what we would like to see leaders lead us, how we can help you visiting us today, coming and watching, get into leadership, be better leaders, things like that. Now, I know I'm by no means an expert, but I have some ideas and I have some things, and I love for you guys to all chip in on YouTube today and chat away. And also, we've got our usual panel here, and so we're going to go around the houses and introduce everybody. So I think first off the block, let's go for Sanne.
Hey, good morning. I'm Sanne Visser. I'm a tester in the Netherlands. I'm currently working as a project lead, running in 3 different projects at the moment. So I have a lot to say about what to do and not to do.
Excellent. Throw it over to somebody else. Let's go.
Hannah, go for it.
Yeah, my name is Hanna Schlander, and I work as a quality catalyst at Devo Team Creative Tech in Sweden. Veerle.
My name is Veerle Verhagen. I'm a tester. I always just say I'm a software tester, and I currently work for Riskit, also in the Netherlands. Chris, you go.
Oh, okay. I'm Chris Armstrong. I'm also a tester, and I work for Provar Testing, and I live in South Wales. Back to you, Shay.
All right. I love how Chris was quite surprised that. Oh yeah, it's me. Okay, and I'll do the same. So Shay Crompton. I'm currently working as a senior quality engineer at Prima Assicurazioni. And it takes me ages to warm up to say that in the morning. And I'm here in the UK and talking about all things quality within my company. Now, let's get to the topic, shall we? Leadership. I mean, it's such a big topic. It's huge. There's so many things. How about we kick off with maybe a story about where you saw leadership done badly? Let's get in there straight away. Who wants to get in?
I think I've probably left at least 3 jobs due to bad leadership, right? I mean, that's just generally the place where you kind of hit your limit with somebody that's doing something where you go like, okay, I am not in this. I have to get out. I can't follow you. And it tends to be around decisions that move teams away from collaboration and into silos. That's the moment when I notice it really gets my back up. When people are like, no, you have to be here and do this and don't talk to them, that I really get annoyed. So there's bad leadership right there, putting people into silos.
Yeah, that is so ostracizing. And I think it's probably, it sometimes seems like it's a control thing, because some leaders try to control everything around them, in particularly in software development. I have to control every single bit of, almost do the coding sometimes. I mean, micromanaging, isn't it?
I was actually going to say that, like, yeah, the second worst thing I think is the micromanaging, just the people that feel that because they are in this position of leadership, they have to decide every little thing and like keep an eye on every little thing. I once left a job, not only because of that, but partly because we had a manager who would just invite himself to every single meeting that we did, including the ones that he was actually not even totally not welcome in, like the Scrum meetings where he did like the retro with the team, which is meant to be a safe space. And he showed up at some point and sat there. And the one thing he used to do was he would take notes. In every meeting that he sat in, he would sat there with his little notepad taking notes. And everybody got really self-conscious, like, what is he taking? Like, is he taking notes of everything I say? Is he going to use this against me? It was the weirdest thing.
Oh, wow. That's just harsh. I on the topic of micromanagement, I've got to hold my hand up. I mean, I came into leadership. I was pretty much thrown into leadership. It's like, there's a space there, Shay. You just fill that and go and lead those guys over there. This is computer games. You sort of leadership is kind of thrust upon you. And I just looked around and saw what was going on. How do the other people lead me? Okay, I'll do the same. And it was a micromanaging way. And I rewrote the test cases for these testers. I was on them every single day. Hopefully I didn't do too much damage, but yeah, I'm so guilty of doing that. And I did have somebody blow up at me once at one stage in my career going, listen, you're on me the whole damn time. If you want to do my job, do my damn job, but you need to just you need to trust me to do my job. And that was one of the few turning points, or many turning points in my career. It's like, okay, I have to learn to step back and trust these people to do what they want to do or are qualified to do.
It brings home a bit of the leadership by example, doesn't it? Because especially if you've never been in a leadership position and you've only ever seen leaders like that, if you don't feel that you're allowed or empowered to do things differently, you kind of think that is the way you should be, and it can make you feel really uncomfortable, like you say. I think that the worst example of a leader I can think of was a manager who took the greatest pride in testing people's reactions to him blowing up at them and showing them. So he would, every time there was a new person in his team, he would explicitly try to break them publicly.
That's not even bad leadership. That's
bad. That's
psychotic.
And if people stood up to him, he was like, I can respect you. If they went off and cried, he'd be like, you're weak, I can dominate you. That's the kind of person he was.
That's the worst I've ever heard.
He's also the same person, same project manager in this instance, that decided that nobody could leave stand-up until every issue that was raised in stand-up could be sorted. And so it was a 3-hour stand-up, which is a great start to the day. Who doesn't enjoy that?
Ouch.
Specifically not how stand-ups work. Oh my God, that's the worst.
Just for those watching, Viola's got internet problems today. So if you're seeing her do a funky face on screen, we're seeing the same. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm looking at our show notes here, and there is a note there about sort of not having a leader when one is needed. So I think this is, so it was Hannah who put this in, having informal leaders showing up. Let's find out about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in a situation where there's like, you're in a team, but you don't actually have a formal leader, and it's clear that someone needs to like structurize it. But how do you actually go about getting someone? Like, I'm guessing you should probably talk to management, but it can be a bit tricky if you're out as a consultant on how to do it when there's like really no leadership and the people in your team. It's just difficult because you're kind of finding your way, and just how to go about it. I found it really difficult.
So what happened? Like, did you get a whole bunch of people trying to pull that cart, or did you end up?
It wasn't. What a matter of like no one doing it, which is almost worse. Well, actually, it might have been.
Because very often, like in that vacuum, somebody will just jump into it, whether it's even wanted or not, but somebody will fill the space, unless you happen to have been in a group where nobody was inclined to do so, which does happen. It's never happened to me because I'll always be the one then jumping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did actually jump onto it after a while.
There you go.
But, yeah. But I mean, up until then, it was just a bit of like, how do you go about this? And the organization was just a little bit weird. So it made it's difficult when you don't have any structure. And I don't know, I mean, in Sweden, the organizations are quite flat. And like most of the time, I think that's really good. But sometimes it's like, well, who's in charge? I mean, because that would be good to know. And how do we go about tackling this?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because, it's sort of a catch-22. Without somebody taking the lead to say we don't have a leader, there won't become a leader that is assigned to the group that needs leadership. I'm, same as Sana, I just can't stand meetings or situations where everybody's sort of milling around and shuffling. I'll just go, right, okay, here we go. And I kind of just jump in with both feet. It's the kind of thing of like, if we're not taking a step forward, we can't adjust the way we're going. It's like, if we're just all milling around, we're not doing anything. From that point of view, my initial thought is, you find the next level up and you go, see that over there? That's not working right. And it's because it's not got a direction. And the reason it's not got a direction is because it's not got a leader. Fancy doing something about it, maybe, leading, something like that. And as a consultant, you kind of have a little bit more of a carte blanche to do that. I find you're able to call the elephant in the room because you're kind of paid to be the person who calls the elephant in the room.
Small bit of story time here.
Yeah. Okay, come on.
I once was in a communication training, and one of the things, the exercises we were doing is how to be supportive of the leader, the chairperson in the room. And I had my trainer in stitches at that point, because as hard as I tried, I kept capturing the chair position back, even when practicing to be supportive of the chair. And after like the third attempt, where I was really doing all the things, like trying to be just in the supportive role, I was still getting everyone to look at me and do the things that I wanted to do. And she just collapsed to laughter. She's like, no, this is not working. We need to try something very, very different with you. Hang on.
So that actually leads to something we were talking about when we were preparing for the show, is if you go into a position of leadership, how do you hand it back? If you go, this isn't for me, or, okay, I'm done with this leading this team now. Hey, we've got Vila drinking and pausing. This is pretty good. But anyway, how do you give leadership back? Is there a way? I mean, I know that I went into leadership position and I just went, well, this is me now, and just went full bore forwards. I've never thought, well, maybe I'm not ready for this. Can I give it back?
I think you should and can try. I don't know if that works. No, but I mean, there's such a thing, of course, as giving back assignments, which is the closest I can think of getting to it, where you step out of the role completely or away from the assignments. That would be the most direct way of saying no to leadership that I know. But if people are voluntarily following you in what you're doing anyway, you'll get
this whole Life of Brian situation where Brian is trying to say, I'm not the Messiah.
Yeah, that's it. People trundling along. Hello, come and lead me, please.
There is a point now here about basically saying no, right? And we talk about leadership by example and stuff. And actually, if we're struggling with things and we don't want to do things, I think we need to model that in a way that's possible. And there probably is a way, if we can identify someone else that could take the leadership positions, or be honest and earnest with the folks that put us in this position. It's not an easy thing, and I know that often we're in situations where showing weakness or humility suddenly means that we're not a leader, but actually it's not weakness, it's a strength to identify these things. And if we can model those things well, we can be a leader without being in a leadership position and not have to do those things that we don't want to do. But it's a communication thing, typically. We say all the time, and being really aware of ourselves and what we can and can't do. So
Chris, when have you given a leadership role back? Because I'm curious now. It sounds wonderful what you just said, but
sounds wonderful. Let me tell you, lots of trial and error, lots of initial sort of passive aggression, as is my want, where I've kind of tried to drop things and drop subtle hints to see if anyone picks up on these things, and it doesn't always work. Let's be honest. But
does it ever? Let's be honest.
No. Some people are incredibly astute. And really, like, they're really tuned into you. It's a rare thing that happens to someone so close in your workplace, but it's not impossible. I guess an example I had was where I was asked to take over the leadership of a satellite office, which is like 5 hours away from where I lived. Now, you might think that's not a very sensible decision, but they couldn't find anybody else, and they thought, that guy will do it. And how do you resolve those things? It was largely around the area of just finding people in a better situation, trying to help transition out, because it didn't make sense for me to be going that far all of the time. It would have ruined me mentally, probably. But also there were other people who deserved a chance, who were more local, who had a good opportunity, and maybe there needs to be a transition. People talk about sort of transitional leadership and stuff. Have the conversations.
Yeah, that does tend to be how I get suckered, though, because they'll be like, it's just temporary.
Well, that's where you've got to be quite firm, though, and just say, look, this is for this period of time, and we're going to find that, because I can't do this for all these times for these reasons. I've got a young family, I don't want to travel that far, so on and so forth. And just remind them, hold them accountable to something that they've agreed to do with you.
There's a certain amount of self-awareness there, though, that comes with, I guess, being a leader. I think, now having been in a leadership position for years, it's about 20 years, and that by no means makes me any sort of expert, and I'm still learning. But there's that maturity there where you understand yourself a bit, and you sort of go, no, this isn't right. I'm going to hand this back. And I think if I've been in a similar situation to yours, Chris, and I think I would I would have stepped back a lot sooner than I did, with this awareness now. But at the time, just carried on doing it because I didn't think I was allowed to.
You're sometimes put in a position where you don't feel like you can say no, though, don't you? I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
There are situations when you're leading a movement or a group or a community of practice where because of the way it's built or its immaturity, that if you decide to stop and stop leading the group, it's going to stop altogether or fall apart. So there is this sense very frequently when you are running something that is very fun and very cool, but you've maybe moved on, that stopping will also stop the movement. And now that's partly also not having built the community maybe in the right way. So there's a bit of guilt around that. I've had those feelings very strongly when I stopped running the blockchain testing community, because there was a group very interested in having me continue, but my interest had waned by that point. And I knew it wouldn't survive without a strong personality still walking ahead of the group and guiding them. And it didn't. So that hurts. So that's sometimes a reason I think we may go on too long, because you kind of feel like you're doing it for the other people.
Now that my connection seems to be stable, I'm jumping in quickly.
Do it.
Because I'm kind of noticing that in reality, we're talking about a couple of different things. And I see Lee's comments about having a dev who used to be a dev manager and then went back to being a dev and was much happier about it. And I'm like, here, so actually we're talking about management and leadership, and they're not necessarily the same thing. And I think some of what Chris was saying earlier as well was more about, like, do you want to be a manager? Like, well, no, because it involves a lot of work that maybe you don't really want to do. Whereas being a leader is not, I guess, not necessarily about the activities that you do so much or the work that you take on, but it's also more a sort of a state of mind, which is more what you said, Sana, like you had your community and it needed a strong personality to sort of keep the group together. And when that disappeared, the group fell apart.
That's an interesting one. And I was literally, one of the more interesting books that I've read a number of times now or listened to is called Turn This Ship Around. And one of the things that the author says towards the end is that suggests that you should lead so that when you leave, they don't notice you're gone, as opposed to when you leave a great big hole. What do you think about that?
It's lovely and also hard. Like right now I'm starting a lot of new initiatives, and one of the new rules I've got for myself is kind of a power of 3 rule. So if there's not at least 2 other people with me that I would consider as capable or as enthusiastic about continuing, I don't start. So I've added a new rule since running that community.
Yeah, otherwise you are, it is that sort of like person under the bus aspect, isn't it? It's all stop if you win the lottery or hit by a bus or something. I think so. I've touched on it a little bit with resources and becoming self-aware as a leader. So I'd like to go on to how do you think is the best way to step up into a leadership position? So the scenario is somebody who's they've been doing it in their career a few years. They've got a bit more experience, and they're looking around for the next thing, and they think, hey, I think I'd like to try a bit of leadership. I mean, I had it thrust upon me, so I have my ideas, but they're anecdotal. But how would we move up from? How do you take that first step? How do you go right?
Seth Godin has a brilliant blog post about it, and as usual, it's like 3 lines long, so it's easy to remember because he always writes short bits. He basically says, which is also in Start With Why from Simon Sinek, and it's echoed all over, but the only thing to do when you want to be a leader is to decide to be. The decision is key. Once you've decided to be, the next thing is to get better at leading. So if you've decided to be, and you've got maybe 1 or 2 people following or none, all you have to do is get better at getting people to follow. But you've already made your decision to be a leader in this area. So that's the key. And the second thing is to then get better at leading. 2 steps. Very
can
simple.
can I add like step 0 in this? I think maybe also wonder why you want it.
Yeah,
because
good.
it seems like we've got this weird societal expectation of like, oh, if you're a leader, you're someone important, you're someone capable. If you're just a follower, well, you're just really following, you're just one of the sheep, which I think is weird and unnecessary. I don't necessarily think being a leader makes you a better or more capable or somehow more important. So I guess, why do you want to be a leader? What do you think you can offer that will make the world or your community or your team better?
Yeah, there's always been very clear personal reasons for me. So that start with why you want to lead is a really good one. How's that for you, Hannah?
Yeah, I'd say just thinking about why you want it sounds like a really good start of it. And then like looking around for what opportunities that you might have and try to find someone who can, like, if you feel a bit insecure about it, get out in the community and maybe get some coaching, get someone that you can just bounce your ideas off as well to grow as well, because it can be really tricky. And if you have gotten into the position and feel a bit insecure, also talk to the team, like what are they looking for, and like ask for feedback, because that's like the best way to get better, is to, well, learn from your surroundings. And if you're in a psychological safety, well, if a team where the psychological safety is high, you should be able to talk about this openly and grow as a person, I'd say.
Yeah, having that coach, having that mentor, having somebody to get feedback from, I think is really, really important. I think it's really, I've found it difficult to seek that out in my career. I mean, as I've mentioned before, I was in computer games. It was just like kind of get stuff done. You're in the eternal firefight basically, and you just sort of try your best. And I did that most of my career until I got some formal training. And fortunately, I realized that the people I had led, I'd done okay. I don't think I killed anybody's careers, and anybody watching this, if I did, I apologize. I'll buy you a beer next time we meet. But it's that kind of like nowadays I'm like, okay, so where are my mentors? And because I was a consultant for a while, I didn't really have that consistent personal leader. I mean, so for me, I sought out the mentorship within resources, like as the pirate tester here has mentioned, Simon Sinek, Seth Godin. There are many great resources out there that you sort of go, okay, I'm listening to these people. These people sort of align with what I'm saying or what I'm feeling, and people think they're good, and so I'm going to use that as my coaching mechanism.
I'm going to add a female name in there, Margaret Heffernan, just to
Yeah,
balance things
yeah.
out.
My apologies. I go around like 4 books, and they're all written by men, but absolutely. And I think Lolly Descal as well, it's mentioned as well. And yeah, I think what we'll do after this is maybe chuck a couple of notes in the show notes there, and I'll put them as links down in the YouTube video for anybody who wants to listen to, watch, read these resources.
Our chat, Shay, has hit upon one of the topics we were going to talk about.
I noticed. Okay, so then you go, Sunny. You're the one who's noticed. So go for it.
So Gareth writes. So let's also be clear. You can lead and follow at the same time, just in different areas and different focus. Gareth, come and teach me. Like, yes. I do have such trouble with the following part. In fact, we set out a poll on what is your preference, leading or being led, and we had a whopping 77% declare that they want to be a leader and not to be led. So I'm not that sure if we're all that good at doing this at the same time. I like the idea that we can, but I don't feel it. How's that for you, Chris?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I guess leadership doesn't always mean leading people or leading projects, does it? It's sometimes it's more about just like leading, setting examples, and doing good things. I am, because I'm a cool and crazy kind of guy. I came up with a mnemonic for lead, because why wouldn't you? And so I had this is what leadership means to me, if you like. So the L was for learning, so always continuously learning, never setting back and going, I know everything. No, I shall just come to my learning tree and I shall teach you everything. No, I know I need to learn so I can help others, right? E was for enriching, making things better. That doesn't need to be about people or anything. It could be anything. Just make things better. That's a motivation for people in quality. A was around availability, because I don't want to be a blocker. I don't want people to be waiting on me to do stuff. I want people to know that they can come to me, and I want people hopefully to be available to me, and so on and so forth. And D, the most important one probably, is do the things you say. Lead by example. Don't just say stuff. And I think none of those things are explicitly about leading people or about leading projects. They're just good leadership things that to me are important.
That's a great mnemonic. You made it?
I did. I thought with my own brain, and I came up with words that begin with the letters.
You heard it here first, folks. This is it. This is the start of the lead mnemonic by Chris. I think that final one, as you said, is pretty much the most important. I mean, I've certainly been around leaders and managers who they go, all right, and I'm going to do this, and then you're like, okay, waiting. Any minute now. Any minute now. And yeah, and that erodes the trust, doesn't it? You end up like, okay, well, what else? If you say something, it's not. I can't sort of take anything else. So why should I trust you as a leader? Why should I follow you? Why should you be my coach? I definitely think that's one of the most important things.
I think you just hit on something really relevant that I don't think clicked for me before. To follow is a decision. It's once you've placed trust and decided to really go with someone that is indeed showing all these beautiful attributes with the LEAD, but it's a decision point where we're like, okay, this is somebody I trust, I'm going to follow them. And maybe that's the issue, that I just haven't had that many people in my life where I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to follow. Maybe that's the issue.
Can I do a bit of story time?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, cue Villa's story, everybody.
And now just hope that my connection stays as stable as it is right now. Okay, so normally when I talk about having a bad experience at work or having bad management, it's usually always about the same job that I had a few years ago. So it's the other manager that I manage, the micromanager. He's part of this story. they had done a employee satisfaction survey, and it turned out that like our employee satisfaction was the absolute pits. So they wanted to do like an afternoon of workshops where we had to come up with ideas of like what would make working at that absolute hellhole better. And I ended up like, we had to do it in wee groups, and we had like flip charts, and we had to like write down ideas and whatnot. And I ended up in a group with the micromanager, and I was just like, I cannot be bothered with this, because I disliked him and I disliked his way of dealing with things. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to sort of like place myself outside of the group a little bit. So I was like, you know what, I'll write down all the ideas. So I just grabbed the markers and I drew up like a little schedule on the flip chart, basically to get out of having to contribute, because I figured if I'm just writing down everyone's ideas, I'm like, I can be a little bit like a facilitator, but I don't have to actively engage with the discussion. So essentially, in order to get out of the activity, I just stood there like, I'll write everything down. And then my colleague walked past, who was in a different group, and he was like, it's so typical that you would take the lead on this. And I'm like, I'm not taking the lead. I'm deliberately placing myself out of the situation so that I don't have to deal with this person's management style, because otherwise he's going to do it and I'm going to have a terrible afternoon. And so I felt that was a really interesting thing, that I didn't really feel like I was taking the lead. I felt like I was getting out of something that I didn't want to do. But the way it looked to other people was apparently that I was in the lead there, which I think is another interesting point. Like, what is the difference between actually being the lead or just being seen to have the lead? That was story time.
Yeah, I think they decided to follow you. That was half the thing. I mean, one thing, you stood up, like that helps. But then the other side of it is they obviously felt more comfortable seeing you in that role and following you into it than the other manager. So it was like a group think decision.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it was also, I guess, the whole thing about like having a leadership position, or having taken that, or how do you give it back, or even how do you take it back after someone takes it? Like, I was just standing there like, I'll write down the ideas. And apparently nobody was comfortable or felt the need to say like, no, don't do that, sit back down. So I guess in a way, like once you're in a certain position, it's awkward for others to try and change the situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people like you in my meetings, and like,
what does that mean?
No, but that's like, you know, they kind of with the best intention do try and capture and guide a discussion or a topic or even the whole group. And I honestly love them, because they make my job so much easier, because they'll be like, yeah, great, you grab that, post it, you go ahead, get to that board, you sort us out into groups. I'm happy to have people help me, organize groups in the direction I'm going anyway. The only reason I'd ask someone to sit back down is if it wasn't constructive. So I always feel it's a good sign to also see like how capable a leader is of a group when somebody does that and how they deal with it. Like you said, I'm guessing your manager froze, so didn't do anything, right?
I think he just kind of went with it.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's the other thing. Some people are just so relieved. Oh, finally, somebody else has stood up. I didn't want to do this anyway. Oh, God, I'm so happy now.
That's actually funny, because I kind of felt when my colleague said like, oh, it's funny that you were taking the lead there. I kind of felt like, oh, that's weird, because I didn't experience it that way. And I guess I didn't really think about how the others in the group experienced it either. And now that you mentioned it, like, yeah, maybe he was quite happy to be relieved of his responsibility for a wee bit. Could be.
Yeah. I think
yeah.
Yeah. No, you go, Shay.
Leadership is an interesting thing as well, because you're talking about the sort of mental aspect of it, and it's like you stood up and everybody's going, oh wow, look at that strong leader, and you're like, in your head you're like, okay, I'm just doing this to sort of sideline myself a bit. I mean, there's quite often a lot going on in our heads, isn't there, about sort of like, am I doing it right? Is this the right thing? If you don't have a strong mentor or regular catch-ups with another leader, either formal one-to-ones or informal, there's no sense checking, is there? So you're there going, I don't know if I'm doing this right, or hey, I'm just out here doing this and la 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 la, and writing on this whiteboard, and everybody's and nobody realizes what's going on in your head. There's a lot, it's the sort of proverbial swan, isn't there? There's a lot more going on to leadership than just sort of standing up and sort of helping people go that way or follow you along.
And both your stories, Shay and Veerle, point out how often people are put in manager positions or are given authority in like hierarchical sense. I'm specifically trying to watch my language here. So they're not necessarily leaders, but because they've been put into these positions with some type of authority, they are not trained. Like you mentioned, Shay, that you weren't for the longest time. And I know this happens so often, where it's kind of like, well, it's the only way to get ahead in the hierarchy. So to get my career going, I have to make this step, but there's no support, no training. And I've been looking into this type of training as well. There's not that much out there in terms of formal like guidance to even find. Informal, there's plenty, but just formally, like, here you go, here's a stamp, now you are a good leader. Yeah.
Here, so we've got a question. There we go. Yeah, we got a question from the panel, from the. Well, it is Monday morning. I do apologize.
And the clock's changed.
Come on, switch on, Veerle. Switch on.
You had your coffee.
Go. All right. Okay. So there's a question.
You can do this.
I think it is really relevant to what we are discussing right now, because Lee's asking, as a leader, how do you build trust so others follow? And so I think this is super relevant just now, because as you said, there's not a lot of training of how to be a good leader. So how do you build that trust? Because I guess it is all about that.
Feedback is great, but also the decision, like the why comes back into it. If you keep clear why you're doing what you're doing, it's not even that much of a big deal that people are trustful and following. You're heading towards that goal. You're the one that's building it. Followers are great and you would love to have them, but in the end, the why is even more important. So there's that first thing again. What are you doing? What's your motivation? Why have you decided to lead? And then go and build trust and following.
I think also, being genuine in your in that around that sort of understanding why you're leading. Leadership is often talked about as a job, as a role, but it's not really. It's a mindset. You have to have that mindset of I am this kind. I have this kind of style of leadership. I do it this way. And I see, and I course correct upon feedback, but unless you know your why, you don't know why you've got to change.
I think Chris's acronym is really relevant here, because I think what you said about doing the things that you stand for, not just talking about it, but actually showing that you practice what you preach is super important. I actually also think the availability thing is very important, because if you are going to be a leader, a type of leader that people can rely on, like you just can't be flaky in that. And of course, we've all got our downtime, and we all need our downtime. So it's not like you have to be available 24/7 for people. But I do think if you're going to be a leader, like you have to be that person all the time. And then another thing that I think is super important that would make me trust someone in a position of leadership is showing that you in turn trust the people who are following you or who are thinking about following you. So I think one of the super important things about good leadership is that you don't think that you are in charge of absolutely everything. I think a good leader can recognize when the group or when someone in the group has a good idea. I think that is super important. Mostly it's about sort of nurturing the community or the group that you've got. And so it's absolutely not about you having to have all the good ideas. It's like you empowering others to come up with their good ideas. And I think that is the one thing, the most important thing that would make me trust someone in a position of leadership, and that would make me decide I can follow, because it means that you're not following that one person, you're following a person who can make the most out of the combined potential of the group. And I think that is absolutely fundamental.
The most
very
of
good
the
point.
potential of the group. That's going to be the quote for this session.
Yeah. So one of the few conference talks I've done was about leadership and parenting and comparing that. And I've found that there are so many comparisons, and with what you said there, Viola, it's like, you need, if you see as a father of a newborn, when the baby starts walking, you're there like going, okay, you're about to fall over, I'll catch you. You're about to fall over, I'll catch you. And one of the things I had to learn was keep my hands in my pockets and go, right, you're going to fall, but I'm here for you. When you fall, I'll pick you up and, dust you off, and, and then either put you back on the direction or just give you a different direction. Same as if the child runs off into the distance, the assessment you've got to make is, are they going to be safe going that way? And if that is that, they're going to be safe. Follow them. Don't sort of stop them and say, come back, because that's the micromanager. That's the, you've got to let them go. Same with the team.
Yeah, but you still got to yell at them for climbing the curtains. I mean, there are limits.
Oh yeah, I mean, but we're not talking about developers here, okay? This is not about developers.
No, but I like that as a metaphor, as a parent as well. It's like the current thing with my youngest daughter is she's very much a distracted child, to put it mildly. So what happens is things get knocked over. And we've got to, instead of saying, watch the glass or watch the plate, we now say, take a look, what's going on? And then she has a moment and she stops and she scans her own space and then makes her own decisions, what to move to the middle of that table, and kind of, it's the coach versus the teacher kind of position, I think, that will really help you as far as getting people also moving and doing stuff. It's like, well, if you're going to run off in a completely different direction, if you're in a playground with fences around it, run the heck off. But,
so that's the safe space aspect, creating the safe space.
Yeah, and that's what you as a parent / leader have hopefully put in place. Like, well, here's your code of conduct, here's your little chat group, here's the way you can safely say the things you need to say and rant and bitch about things. Like, here you go. But like, as soon as we turn this camera on and we start streaming onto YouTube, the 5 of us go into a different mode.
Well, this is a different walled garden, isn't it? Different safe space.
There is a point though with the choice of language that we use, especially like with kids or with colleagues. If we're always doing the don't do this or the no, with the raise our voice, we shout, and everything's very sort of tinged with a great level of negativity, it's hard to come back from that with positivity. Whereas if we can frame things, if we can do things ourselves with a positive motivation, with positive language. Like I remember talking to a colleague who was trying to get an external stakeholder to back off, and he was going to start that conversation with a very much, you are not helping things, these are not going well, people are really upset with your behavior. And the problem with starting a conversation like that is it puts that other person on the back foot. We've set the tone for negativity, whereas actually a good mark of leadership is good communication, but communication that can come with positive outcomes. And so the way to sort of frame it in that instance was more along the lines of talking about, we've got some brilliant people here who can make great decisions. If we give them the opportunity to empower themselves, make these right decisions, they're going to feel motivated, they're going to be pleased, they're going to be able to take ownership, all these things that you would like if you can give them the opportunity and the space to do those things. And the same happens with kids. If we're just always telling them no, 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 stopping it, they're going to live their life thinking that there's very much like there's lines drawn and I can't do those things, where it's more along the lines of, what can I do? Where can I grow? Where can I do these things? And it's hard because I don't want them to do that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have kids, but let's prepare. Well, I can compare a little bit to like the pet world as well, where you have dogs. I mean, the most I mean,
Positive
years ago,
reinforcement.
years ago, it was so common to like no, which is really easy to get there. But now it's more about positive reinforcement and like building good behavior. Of course, there's a difference between pets and children, but I mean, it's pretty much like the same thing.
They can still sense the tone and everything, can't they?
Yeah, they can. So if just
one
building
of the
people's confidence up a bit.
It does, and I mean, one of the things that jumped into my head there was when Chris was talking is about growth mindset, and Carol Dweck sort of championed this quite a few years ago, and it's all about sort of how you praise the effort rather than the result. And it's the same sort of thing. If you're saying, "Don't do that," well, that's like, oh, but if you say, "Hey, instead of that, do that. Come over here." That's the positive change that you can make. And it's the same with in teams and leadership. It's like, I can see what you did there. That was amazing, the way you dealt with that situation. We didn't get the result we needed. How can we do better next time? What can we change? Or how can I help you to do it better? And that, that's the servant leadership thing. It's all about the sort of helping someone to move in a forward direction rather than stopping them moving at all.
I think we're up for maybe a bit of a summary or the last thing on our list. Where are we on the agenda?
I think we've got most of them so far. I mean, we've got sort of one sort of thing of putting people in a leadership position with no support, and I think we sort of talked around that a bit. I mean, as I said, I was just chucked in and left to it, and hopefully didn't kill too many people by it. But how about anybody else want to tell? Has anybody else been in that kind of position where it's just like go and do? Oh, hang on.
There was one.
Son is there. Come on.
No, but there was one we absolutely had to talk about, which was about leading up, where you manage your leader or you manage your manager. We were going to talk about this one for sure.
Oh man, that's absolutely right. Well remembered. That's why one of the big many things I've said that to quite a few friends. It's like when they're going, oh man, I'm having such a crap time. I get no time with my manager, and when we do, it's like 5 minutes, or they cancel my meetings at the last minute and everything like that. And kind of my reply to them is, you've got to manage your manager. Learn, if you want a one-to-one with them, you've got to manage that situation. You go and take it, and you say, listen, I've looked at your calendar. This is where you are free. This has to be a sacred meeting. I'm not getting the reception I'm getting. And that's sort of managing up from my point of view. Who else has to learn that, or has done that, or has ideas around that? Because it's such a crazy topic.
I have tried many a time to do this, where you have ended up in the situation where you have a micromanager, or you have somebody who's in some way doing things that are not conducive to building up that trust and willingness to follow. And indeed, it's where you kind of start coaching them. So I had the situation where the one-on-one that I had with him was right after the one-on-one he had with his boss, so the skip level for me. And honestly, it just made him really bureaucratic, and he would have been pretty much talked back into the straight and narrow of things every time. So as soon as I spoke to him, it would be all about how do we get control back? How do we work on budgets and outcomes, all the things you don't want to hear in like an agile setting. So I just moved our one-on-one to another time in the week where there was as much space as possible between the one-on-one with his boss and the one-on-one I had with him. And it changed the mood completely. Just not having that immediate switch from talking to his boss to then talking to me made our relationship a whole lot better. I mean, I still left the company. It didn't solve everything, but it did help for like the next 6 months or so. It made for better one-on-ones. Any other stories like that where you've led up?
There's a point where you need to sometimes, if we take on the one-to-one kind of example of, you've got to control a little bit of your own personal narrative when it comes to your self-development and stuff. You know, I've got to know what I want to do, and I expect my leader to hopefully support me in doing those things. You know, in one-to-ones, it should be very much more the person who is not the leader or manager or whatever to dictate the conversation. It should be my opportunity to get across what I want to do, what I'm struggling with, and those things. And so if I'm leading up, that means I'm actually trying to give them as much information about what's going on, about what I want to be doing, what I'm struggling with, giving them quite specific things that I need them to do in order for me to do a better job. And that's not always easy in one-to-ones where maybe there's a template that's been submitted earlier, or they're in a rush, or they're distracted. And so to your point, Sanna, sometimes you've got to try and change the situation to try and move us away from something that isn't helping, and being honest and ask, right now this isn't working, can we try something else? And that's not always easy with different managers that I've worked with, but actually they probably don't know that this isn't working unless you tell them. That information's valuable, and I can't, there's no point in me complaining that this isn't working to someone else if that's the person I need to go and talk to about it. And so sometimes just sort of building up, I mean, I might speak to one of you before I have to go and have a conversation and say, give me the confidence to say these things, please. And then I'll go into that meeting with a little bit more courage, maybe.
Yeah, fair enough.
We've all said how we get better. You know, we've asked earlier how we get better at being a leader and things like that. And one of the first things I said was feedback, and everybody else nodded. Well, the person who is leading you probably appreciates feedback, constructive feedback. They may not realize they would appreciate it, so you may have to figure out a way to deliver it to them so they do hear about it. But yeah, it's something that I think is important, because one-to-ones are a two-way conversation, right? It's not
It should be.
Yeah, it's not Moses comes down from the mount and gives you a couple of tablets to take with you. It is like, it should be a two-way conversation. It's a feedback session, and it's for your personal development, and I guess a little bit for theirs as well, but also development of that relationship.
Yeah, but I love that tip about prepping it with some friends. The difficult conversations when you have to lead up and you have to be maybe a little bit confrontational or very confrontational. That's the time to write things down, have a chat with colleagues and friends before you sit down and have that conversation. And this last one also, be very prepared for that conversation not to go anywhere, because the fact that this manager or leader has been doing this wrong for the longest time probably means they're fairly resistant to this type of feedback as well. So don't be too discouraged if your message doesn't end up being the one that changes behavior. It's unlikely that your feedback is going to be the feedback that changes this person. It can happen. It's just not very likely to be. So don't worry that after the conversation, things don't change. That just means you have to start a different set of conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, I've for sure been there as well, where I had the manager where I brought up the same problem over and over again, and no reaction. And then when I handed in my resignation, they're like, "What could we have done to keep you here?" I'm like, "Listen, that would be a good start."
If we could change one thing. Anyway.
Yeah, that was an interesting exit interview afterwards. But I mean, it's so frustrating when you brought up a problem multiple times, and then it's like, oh yeah, what could we have done differently? Acted on it, perhaps. I complained for over a year. But
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, leading up is a good advice. It's just not always one that's going to work out.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and again, it comes to the point where just so many people are put into these positions that haven't had the support or training that they should have had.
I just want to add that sometimes leading up can be absolutely exhausting.
Yeah, that too.
because you do take on a certain responsibility, and you are putting in, let's say, the emotional labor.
Yeah.
Which I think can actually be a lot more tiring and time consuming than people think.
You have to make a very conscious choice to do that and put in the effort, which obviously, as long as you're intending to still work with this person, can be worth it. If you do not have that intention, or you are able to not work with them, that could be a very viable option in terms of not leading up, but leading yourself away.
Brilliant.
It's personal leadership, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's it. Look inside before as well. Fantastic. So just looking at the time, it's we're pretty close to our time now, so I think we'll start winding up. Although I love it that Jesper's just put a final message in there, adding to Chris's mnemonic. We have another L, which is listen, and I love that. So that's really cool. So maybe lead is LLEAD now.
It's going to be confusing because Chris lives in Wales now, and there the double L, I think, is a lateral fricative, so it would be header.
Hang on, a what? A
header.
lateral
Just
fricative.
a lateral fricative. It's a real thing. Sorry, just I always have to drop some linguistics bombs in the conversation.
Double L is a language, is a letter of its own in Welsh.
Oh, wow.
Just for fun.
A lateral Okay, that's I'm going to live off that for the day.
Sorry, just completely. It went so well for almost an hour, and now I'm derailed it.
How many times can we get that into conversations today? There's your challenge.
All right.
Okay, so what an amazing topic we've covered. It's so as always, it's meandered all over the place, and I hope everybody who's joined us today has got something from it. Do feedback to us. We'd love to hear feedback, and comment in the YouTube video, or hit us up on Twitter. And with that, so first I'll mention next topic, and the next topic is deep work. Sana, do you want to just give us a quick overview? Can you remember why? Oh, flow and focus time. Yeah. So how do we achieve that? Is that right?
Yeah. So I think we're all very busy people, and these days, I think there's some statistic out there. You touch your phone like something around 2,750 times a day on average. I think that's every type that you do on it as well. But still, that's staggering. And that's just your phone, not counting all the other things that distract you, people. And how do you find space, keep managing the time so that you have time to think or to do deep work?
I know we've got some good opinions on that and good advice and everything. And that will be at 1 p.m. Central European time, or midday British summer time, because the clock's changed, on 26th of April. And find us, so we're 9 out of testers everywhere, as many places as we've been able to do. Not Instagram yet, but we might do that sometime. But yeah, LinkedIn is where
TikTok. Why not?
We can do 9 out of 10 testers dance. But yeah, LinkedIn is where we generally sort of send out the notification of the next meetup. But also, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll get told the times and dates and reminders as well. So you've got the like and subscribe in there. Look at that.
Click on it now.
Click on it now. Bing, bing, bing.
And the bell.
And we're also all over the internet. So for me, I am at Shay Mouse on Twitter, Instagram, and Shay Crompton on LinkedIn. Come and find me. Come and chat. I love talking about leadership. It's one of my favorite topics. Come and chat. And Sana, give us your socials,
at Simply Sana on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and you can also find me by looking for Sana Visser at Capgemini.
Brilliant.
Hannah.
Chris. Hannah.
Oh, Chris, Hannah. Chris.
Hannah, go for it.
Yeah, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just search for Hannah Schlander, and you should find me, or at Hannah Schlander on Twitter, but I don't check it very often, so don't get your hopes too much up. Chris.
Okay, well, my name's super common, so don't search for Chris Armstrong. You probably won't find me, but I am on Twitter and LinkedIn, and Christovskia. Which is a horrible name, but if you search for 9 out of 10 testers, you'll find my handle on there as well.
Yeah, good point. I even corrected a typo recently, so we can find Vila, who on Twitter is
at Witch of the Test.
She's got the best one.
Yeah, I'm really
For
happy
sure.
with my handle. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just search me by my name, Veerle Verhagen, if you can manage to spell it. And if you want to connect, add in a wee message, because otherwise I'll probably think you're a recruiter and ignore you.
Absolutely. And listen, one of the things, I hope you can tell, we absolutely enjoy doing this. And if you have an event that you want to sort of have a slot and have us come and rant about something, you can even probably suggest the topic yourself. Get in touch. We'd love to join you and whoever's with you and chat and rant and laugh and well, we haven't got crying yet, but we're working on it. And otherwise, I think we'll see as many of you as possible for our next session, Deep Work. Okay.
Yes.
Till next time.
Till
See you
next
next
time.
time.
Bye.
Bye.
And we're off. Stream finished.